I want to begin with a quote from the great theologian Winnie the Pooh. I'll let you read it with me. It's on the screen. Piglet noticed that even though he had a very small heart, it could hold a rather large amount of gratitude. I believe gratitude is one of those things, maybe the thing, that completely changes the way we see the world and how we live day by day. That's why it's a major theme in your Bible. But how do you develop a heart that can hold a rather large amount of gratitude? I want to go back to the scripture we looked at last Sunday and say some more about it. Paul says these words to the church at Philippi. I've learned how to be content with whatever I have. I know how to live on almost nothing or with everything. I have learned the secret of living in every situation, whether it's with a full stomach or empty, with plenty or little. For I can do everything through Christ who gives me the strength. Wow. I have learned to be content with everything I have. I know the secret of living in every situation. Now, I got to be honest with you, I'm not there yet, but it's a direction. You know what our first reaction is when we hear someone say this? Well, that's easy for you to say that. You got a great life. You have an awesome life. You have a fabulous boyfriend or girlfriend. You have a fantastic job. You're always healthy. Your car actually runs. You have season tickets to OSU football. You have hair. It's easy for all of us to fall into that comparison trap. And at the heart of comparison is ingratitude, or as we often call it today, jealousy or envy. I like the definition that Craig Rochelle gives of what envy is. He says, envy is when you resent God's goodness in other people's lives and you ignore God's goodness in your own life. Shakespeare called envy the green-eyed monster. In the Bible, envy is listed with all sorts of horrible things like witchcraft, murder, sexual immorality, and orgies. But most of us just don't think envy is all that bad. So I want to say a couple things. Number one, envy can ruin your health. Real studies are backing this up. It's impossible to be a healthy person and an envious person at the same time. Envy just sort of eats at your insides. Your peace is gone. Your contentment is gone. Your gratitude is gone, and soon your joy is gone. Now, when that joy leaves, all of a sudden your nerves get wound tight. Your stomach gets tied in knots. Your blood pressure starts going through the roof. If you're not careful, you're going to be in bad shape. Solomon says a heart at peace gives life to the body, but envy rots the bones. Not only are you going to mess up your own health, you're going to mess up the relationships all around you if you're an envious person. I mean, it blinds us to everything that's happening in our lives that's good. And then all of a sudden, we have this out-of-control urge to compete, to win, to have more than you have. And pretty soon we see each other as threats to my happiness. Solomon nailed this one too. He says, then I observed that most people are motivated to success because they envy their neighbors. But this too is meaningless, like chasing the wind. That comparison trap we're talking about is a really unhealthy place to be. There's no winning it, no matter how hard you and I try. We just have to be like somebody else. But you know what's even worse? Our children have to be better than their children. There is no end to reality TV shows about children. I'm not going to say the ones I'm thinking about, but you probably know what I'm thinking about. It's embarrassing to watch, and it's almost too painful to watch sometimes. But this need to live through our children to make them who we didn't become is a growing problem in our culture. Alanis Morissette nailed this problem way back in the 90s. She had a song called Perfect. I'll just read a verse to you. I'll live through you, I'll make you what I never was. If you're the best, then maybe so am I. Compared to him, compared to her, I'm doing this for your own good. You'll make up for what I blew. What's the problem? Why are you crying? Be a good boy, push a little further now. That wasn't fast enough to make us happy. We'll love you just the way you are, if you're perfect. Now, this need in kids is so strong that they will compete, they will perform, they will produce, they will do just about anything to get the love and attention of the people around them. Now, fast forward about 20 more years into adulthood, and that same little boy or that same little girl is still producing, still competing, still performing, still comparing, rather than learn Paul's secret of how to be content. You know, God put Adam and Eve in a perfect place. They had everything literally that they would ever need. But their response? Well, it's a nice place, God, but what about that tree over there? Why can't we have that tree? We want that tree. This is not enough. We want more. Ultimately, if you think about it, ingratitude is the root of all sin. Right up there with pride, I think. And if ingratitude is the cause of this problem we're talking about this morning, then gratitude becomes the cure. There is enormous power in gratitude. We have to learn to be grateful people. It really is a big thing. And if you go home today and remember nothing else, just remember that gratitude is that huge. So, 3 humble pieces of advice. Number 1, slow down. You ever been in a glass-bottom boat? Hazel and I did that when we went to Hawaii. It's really a cool thing. Everybody rushes in. They clamor to get a chair to get the best spot so they can see the bottom of the boat. And they're all excited. The captain pulls the boat out of the dock, and it's nothing but a bunch of bubbles. And a huge blur, you can't see a thing. But then he pulls into a cove, maybe next to a coral reef, and he shuts the motor off, and the boat stops. And then all of a sudden, it becomes a breathtaking view. Now, it was there all the time, but we couldn't see it because we were just ripping right through the waves. But the only way to drink in that underworld wonder, slow down and stop. Here's a reality today. We're really good at skimming the surface. We are really good at trying to do way too much. And we're moving faster and faster, and we miss what's right there beside us, below us, around us. So, humble piece of advice number 1, slow down. Notice more of the world around you. Reflect more. And of course, give thanks. Because you're never going to learn how to be content when you're going 100 miles an hour. Number 2, humble piece of advice. Start counting. One of the first things we do is teach our children how to count. Back in 1897, Johnson Oatman wrote an old hymn that says, when upon life's billows your tempest tossed, when you're discouraged thinking all is lost, count your blessings, name them one by one, and it'll surprise you what the Lord has done. We're even going to sing that for a closing song today. You need to learn to count. Ben rags on me all the time because music is supposed to go 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And while this hand of mine is spectacular, I know 80 million chords. This hand is possessed because sometimes it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, and then sometimes it goes 5, 6. It just has no rhythm. Ben rags. Timmy and Amanda look at me with this look. Constipation is the only way I could describe it. And Don says, it wasn't me. And Joe says, well, what's going on over there? What's wrong? Truth of the matter is, you have to have rhythm to make music. And when you lose the rhythm, you lose your focus, you lose your harmony. Counting matters in music. Counting matters in life. If you want rhythm to your life, you have to learn to count. Obviously, more than numbers or timing, blessings. You have to learn to count blessings. In the Old Testament, they literally piled up rocks. They called them altars of remembrance. They did not want to forget what God had done for them. And over the years, a family might be out traveling and come upon this pile of rock, and a kid says, hey, Dad, what's that stack of rocks for? And then Dad would talk about the goodness of God at whatever event that celebrated. Here's our problem. We don't pile up enough rocks. We don't tell the stories of God's goodness in life. Now, I am not suggesting that you go out and start piling up rocks in the yard. It works, but there's an easier way. You already have 1 million photos on your computer and on your cell phone. Why not take a look at them every once in a while with your kids and your grandkids and bring them back and say, this is what happened. This is what we did. This is how God blessed. Someone says contentment is not the achievement of all we want. It's a realization of all that we already have. So count and keep counting. Humble piece of advice number 3, and number last. Share the joy. Augustine said, all try their hardest to reach the same goal, joy. You may not realize that, but ultimately what you want in life is joy, this deep satisfaction in your soul that wakes you up in the morning with a smile on your face. There's an amazing movie back in 2007, Bucket List, that was about finding joy. 2 guys meet for the first time in a hospital room. He's a billionaire. The other one is a car mechanic, I think. But they go on their bucket list. Most everybody has a bucket list. You just don't realize it. Maybe you want to play golf on every course in Ohio. Maybe you want to, I don't know, what else? Maybe you want to watch a ball game in every major ball stadium in the country. Maybe you want to learn to skydive. Maybe you want to ski down the Himalayas. Maybe you want to eat Krispy Kremes in all 50 states. I don't know. And it's great to do that. It's great to have a bucket list. But you need to know that this holy grail called joy is not going to be found in a place or a thing. Before you kick the bucket, you need to visit the land of gratitude. Gratitude needs to be at the top of your bucket list, and you need to share the joy. There's a story in Luke 17 where Jesus heals 10 lepers, but only one of them comes back and says, thank you, and let me read that. One of them, when he saw that he was healed, came back praising God in a loud voice. He threw himself at Jesus' feet and thanked him, and he was a Samaritan. Jesus asked, were not all 10 cleansed? Where are the other 9? Has no one returned to give praise to God except this foreigner? Then he said to him, Rise and go, your faith has made you well. Rise and go, your faith has made you well. I thought he was already healed. Well, maybe healing is more than just getting rid of a disease. Maybe there's a change on the inside. Maybe that leper learned how to visit the land of gratitude. And I think he received a lot more than a physical healing. He received a life that flows out of gratitude. You know, as long as you can say thank you, there's still hope for you. As long as you can still say thank you, you have the heart of gratitude. But the very moment that you can no longer say thank you, then I can almost guarantee you that most of your life is miserable. I want to show you a picture, 3 of them actually. This is over in the land where Jesus lived, and this is Mount Hermon. Snows there all year around, and it flows down the Jordan River into the Sea of the Galilee. Here's the Sea of Galilee. That is just absolutely beautiful. It really is. Many of us here have gone to the Holy Land, and this is one of the best parts there. I mean, fishing, you can almost reach in and grab a fish. It's just beautiful and a beautiful place filled with life. And then it goes back into this Jordan River and travels 60 miles and comes into what they call the Dead Sea. It's the lowest place on earth, land. It's 1,400 foot below sea level. I mean, we were above sea level up there with the Sea of Galilee. We're now below. There is absolutely no life in this sea. Not even germs or bacteria. There is so much mineral that you absolutely cannot sink. And you think that's a real blessing. Well, trust me, I swam in it. And you cannot sink, but then again, you can't get out either. You try to put your feet down, they don't go down. It can be 1 foot underneath you, and you can't put your foot down. You have to scream, somebody pick me out of this place. And they do. I loved it. It's a beautiful spot if you love science fiction sets, because it's another world there, but it's a dead world. Well, what's the point? What's the difference between these 2 seas? Well, obviously the Dead Sea goes nowhere else. It stops. That's why it's dead. The other sea gives and lives. The Dead Sea hoards and dies. And you know, there might just be a lesson in there. Because when your heart is full of gratitude, you will have no choice but to share the gratitude. A life that counts the blessings of God becomes a life that shares the blessings of God. Because God calls us to share as grateful people. And it's more than just money in an offering plate. It's more than just a smile. It's really helping out one another. So it's official. Christmas is here. Another day or so, and then it's Christmas time. And just around the corner is New Year's. So are you ready to slow down a little bit and see the wonderful world of blessings that surrounds you? Are you ready to start counting the blessings that you already have so many of? And are you ready to share what God has so graciously given you? One last time, let's just go back to the great theologian Piglet. We need to learn how to have a heart that will hold a rather large amount of gratitude. Stand, let's share a final hymn this morning.